Hi, Adam here, and welcome to this week's Virtual Regatta Top Tips. This week we're going to look at top tips for winning a regatta as opposed to an individual race. So your thought process for a series needs to be slightly different to a one-off race. So I just thought I'd take you through some of my thought process and tips when competing in a regatta. So before we run in through a race, my favourite helps remain as best VMG and wind indicator. These are the ones I'd recommend simply because best VMG helps so much with steering, and wind indicator just helps show you where the shifts are on the course so much easier. With a regatta, in one-off races, I've always said you need to win the start. It's so important to win the start if you want to win the race. I still think that's true, but with a regatta, early on, it's about getting some solid results in, not necessarily winning every race, but being up there or thereabouts. So you need a solid start, so take fewer risks on the start and be a bit more cautious. The risks can come later on once you've got some good results in the bank. Before you start your regatta, check the number of discards because that'll show you how many risks you can take later on in the regatta. A lot of the ones that seem to be happening at the minute are 5 races with 2 discards. So that gives you a good option to, if you've got a few good results, to be quite risky in the final couple of races. If you're getting tight, if it's tight coming towards the end of a series with another competitor, some tactics you can't use in the real world, but you can in the virtual world, is changing the colour of your boat between races. So if you know another competitor is going to be looking out for you on the start line, potentially going to try and take you out to stop you getting a good result, don't be afraid in between races, change the colour of your boat. At the minute, a green 49er with a pirate flag is fairly identifiable. Changing that to a white boat with nothing on the sail for the next race would make it harder for my competitors to know who I was on the start line. And then finally, back to basics on the Wi-Fi, is I sit next to my router. That seems to give me the least internet problems during a race. And I put Do Not Disturb and airplane mode on to avoid those pesky phone calls from family kicking me out of the game mid-race. So, and then just before the start, just to recap on one of my previous tips, is if you want to just chill out before a start and not keep your finger constantly on the sails flapping button, if you press the yellow button to let your sails flap at the same time as the settings in the top right corner and then click off settings, your sails will still flap without you pressing anything on the screen, so you can just chill out before the start. So once you get into sequence, wait until the minute to start making your decisions on the start line because that's when the top left corner will show you the wind on the course and the bias on the line. So some things I'm thinking about here is choose the end that I'm starting on. So check in by sailing on both port and starboard to see which end is the best to start at. So here I've just done that, and the port end seems like slightly favoured, but it's pretty even. And I just could tell that just by the angle I was coming off the start line there before the start. What I'd say is don't go over the start line because you might pick yourself up a 10-second penalty, which just doesn't cause many problems before the start line, but it's not ideal. So what I've seen there is it's fairly even, but I think there's a slight bias to the port end. That's backed up by the screen in the top left. Again, fairly even, but with the port end a tiny bit further upwind. So I'm going to start towards the chosen end, but not necessarily right at the chosen end and battle out that pin. I'm just going to start towards that end and get a solid start, making sure I've got space to leeward to accelerate into and that I'm bang on the line at go. So there we go. So those are my thoughts coming off the line. I wanted space to leeward and going fast.